to the Dead by Daylight chapter concept for Underworld. First up, we have the new killer, the Lycanthrope. The Lycan is a fearsome beast, an upgrade from the dreaded werewolves of William Corvinus's bloodline. It seeks only to devour and turn friends to foes. For the Lycan, I wanted his abilities to be unique and introduce a more tactical player experience for both survivors and the killer. The Lycan has two forms in-game. First is his default human form. The Lycan begins the trial in this default human form, allowing him greater agency in sneaking up on any unsuspecting survivors. The Lycan attacks by quickly transforming his arms into dangerous claws that can rip survivors apart in mere seconds. Think something similar to how Wesker operates and how he attacks. Each successful hit hastens the Lycan's beast meter, allowing him to transform faster into his terrifying beast form. The beast meter will autofill naturally as the match progresses. The Lycan's beast meter will work in similar mechanic to the Nightfall meter for the Dredge. In beast form, the Lycan grows exponentially bigger and more frightful for the next 60 seconds, gaining access to a larger range when he swipes with his claws to attack. The Lycan has a special ability called Turn. The Lycan can turn survivors in the dying state into mindless werewolves that traverse the map to hunt for survivors. I'd like to add here, there is a maximum of 2 werewolves that can be turned at any given time by the Lycan. Survivors can cure turned allies by using a vaccine found in supply cases around the map. Think similar to how Nemesis and his mechanics work here with his supply crates and vaccines, though this will require you going up to a vicious werewolf and stabbing it with the vaccine without dying. Turned survivors will revert when you are not in your beast form. In this instance, survivors will go back to the injured state and won't be downed if they reverted this way. Werewolves are always visible to the Lycan, and when they are chasing a survivor, the Lycan will get notified by seeing the werewolf chase, meaning that as a survivor, you will have to be on your toes to outwit the werewolf chasing you. Werewolves can be destroyed by the Lycan's attacks, and this will revert them back into survivors in the dying state, allowing the Lycan to hook them or mori them as he pleases. The Lycan has 3 exclusive killer perks, the first being Track Prey. The thrill of the hunt compels you. While in beast form, scratch marks left by survivors are shown in bright red, and they will last for 6 seconds longer at tier 1, 8 seconds at tier 2, and 10 seconds longer at tier 3, allowing the Lycan to skillfully track his prey. The second Lycanthrope exclusive perk is called Lycan Hunger. The thought of human flesh empowers you. While in his beast form, walking over scratch marks and pools of blood will grant 4% for tier 1, 6% for tier 2, and 8% for tier 3, boosting your movement speed temporarily with the haste status effect. Tier 1 haste lasts for 2 seconds, tier 2 lasts for 4 seconds, and tier 3 lasts for 6 seconds. This perk goes on cooldown after use. 60 seconds for tier 1, 40 for tier 2, and 20 seconds for tier 3. Wolf in Sheep's Clothing is the Lycan's last exclusive perk. While the Lycan is in his human form, his terror radius is reduced by 15% in tier 1, 30% at tier 2, and 50% at tier 3. Also in human form, your red stain is reduced by 15% in tier 1, 40% in tier 2, and 60% in tier 3. And now for the new survivor of the chapter. As teased in the poster photo, this new survivor will be Selene, the death-dealing vampire from the Underworld series.
This is what I live for.
Selene has 3 exclusive perks for her main kit. The first one being Death Dealer. You hunt monsters for a living. After completing a certain amount of a generator, when that generator has finally been completed, Selene's skill Death Dealer activates. At tier 1 of the ability, this will require Selene to repair 100% of a generator before activating. At tier 2, 75%, and at tier 3, 50% of a generator will need to be completed. At the completed generator, press the ability button while empty-handed to craft the Death Dealer gun. This gun will have one charge and will allow Selene to aim and shoot the weapon, which, if it hits the killer, will wound them, temporarily stunning the killer, while the entity saves them from death. If you miss, the shot will also create a noise notification, so be wary of when you use this, as in modes such as 2v8, this could reveal your position to another killer. I envision the effect that the killer gets similar to how the nurse gets fatigued after she attacks. This will give Selene a powerful ability as she herself is powerful, but will also allude to the power of the entity being even greater still. If a killer is carrying a survivor and you manage to hit them with the Death Dealer gun, they will drop the survivor on the ground as they writhe in pain. Selene can craft an additional gun per generator that she successfully repairs to the conditions of the perk. Selene's second exclusive perk is called Vampiric Regeneration. Vampiric Regeneration unlocks the ability to instantly heal yourself by 1 health stage when near an injured, hooked, or downed survivor ally. Though this will not work if you are hooked yourself, meaning that this particular perk can be very powerful if you are playing against a killer that doesn't like to hook his prey at first. Each tier of this perk will decrease the cooldown timer after it is used. At tier 1 there will be 120 seconds on the cooldown, tier 2 will have 100 seconds, and finally at tier 3 there will be an 80-second cooldown after it is used. And finally, Selene's third perk will be called Enhanced Sensory. Nothing escapes your vampiric senses. After 10 seconds at tier 1, 8 seconds at tier 2, or 6 seconds at tier 3 of not moving or taking any action, the Enhanced Sensory perk will activate. Enhanced Sensory allows Selene to use her vampiric senses to detect all active movement within a 32 meter range at tier 1. There will be a 48 meter range at tier 2 and a 64 meter range at tier 3. Active movement will include the repairing of generators, but if an ally or killer stops moving or leaves Selene's range, they will disappear from her view. Depending on the tier, this will last for 4 seconds at tier 1, 6 seconds at tier 2, and 8 seconds at tier 3. So long as they are within range and Selene doesn't move, Selene can perceive the killers, allies, chests, and even generators that are being worked on. For the cooldowns of this perk, at tier 1 it'll be 100 seconds, at tier 2 80 seconds, and at tier 3 there will be a 60-second cooldown to the ability. And now guys, for some cool new features for the chapter. First up, we have enhanced lobby chat features. One thing I've noticed is how boring the lobbies are at the moment, so to fix this up, I put together 2 features that will enhance the player lobby experience. First is Killer Chat. Killers now have the ability to see all chat and talk amongst survivors, though the killer's words will be in a strange hieroglyphic language, that of the entity, and the language will not be able to be translated by survivors. This will just be a small housekeeping touch to the pre-game lobby that will add some really funny interactions between players and will further the unique atmosphere this game can potentially bring. Next up, we have a new feature for killers, and that is the Spook Button. Pre-game lobbies will now see the killers having access to a scare button that I've titled Spook, which will be a button added to the left of the ready button in pre-game lobbies. All killers upon release will gain access to a default scare, but there will be further exclusive ones in the shop with cooler effects and newer ones being added with each chapter's release. I'm thinking to go with this chapter's theme, the first default spook will be that of a wolf howl. This particular spook will have a cooldown before the button can be pushed again to avoid any pre-lobby spam of the wolf howl. Here are some exclusive spooks that I thought of that I think would be extra cool to add for killers. First up is lightning and rain. I think this would be on a constant loop, with perhaps a lightning striking at random intervals throughout the pre-game lobby. Rise of the Undead. Having hands appear from the ground in front of survivors, I think would be really wicked. Another one would be haunted candles. This particular spook would darken the lobby and add floating candles spookily around the survivors. I think this would add a really unique and fun player experience, and it should definitely be added in a future chapter. And lastly, for the chapter, something that I think this game desperately needs just to make it so much better, and that is proximity chat. This chapter adding proximity chat will be crucial to enhance player experience, as after a while the chases just get rather boring when doing the same thing over and over again without really any payoff. This would work as a survivor only mechanic and would allow the killer to hear survivors if they are within range to the survivors chatting in game. This would also encourage players to group up and create friend dynamics amongst the game that is sorely needed in its current state, that just feels like an early access version of what the game actually could be. Though I'd like to note, killers themselves cannot use the proximity chat and can only hear survivors if they are close enough. Perhaps in lore this would be explained by the blocking of the entity to maintain its control. Proximity chat will open up the game to potential future killers that revolve around sound, as well as further in-game perks, abilities, and items such as walkie-talkies that could allow players to talk across the map.
Oh my god!
This feature is a must for Dead by Daylight going forward, as not everyone has access or wishes to download Discord, and having it implemented in-game would just be that sweet icing on the cake. Imagine as a killer you were chasing random survivors and it actually feels like you were scaring them because they are screaming and running away from you. Anyway guys, thanks for watching the Dead by Daylight chapter concept for Underworld.